I know we are here to learn the fundamentals, and I'm actually excited to gradually learn from the fundamental up. But actually, since you're here, and there is the burning question that I have for some time, I think in one of your books, you talk about a yod, finger of God. And I understand you have a yod in your chart. If
Yeah.
I can ask about your take in a yod that is Pluto in the first, and so I would say the finger is actually a Chiron in eighth house, with the two bottom in Pluto and Neptune in first
Yeah.
and third.
Yes,
Yeah,
great.
and
Terrific.
I actually have a second leg of question to ask about the orb, because the Chiron in the eighth actually conjuncts North Node.
Oh,
So, but then I wasn't sure if the orb counts, because Chiron is actually 138, and then Pluto is 020, and Neptune is 109. But the North Node is actually 639. So is the North Node a finger, or actually it's just affecting the yacht only affects the Chiron?
yeah. I think the North Node would be part of it, like a flavoring on the Chiron. That's a juicy question. Let me dive in. First, we live in an age of yods. There are more people, more percentage of people on the earth with yods now than there have been generally in history. There's a simple reason for that. It's because we have this Pluto-Neptune sextile in just about everybody's chart, if you let the orbs breathe a little bit. Since World War II, they kind of locked into that. It's going to go into the 2030s. So almost everybody has this sextile, which is like a seed for a yacht. All it takes is a planet halfway or opposite the midpoint of the Neptune and the Pluto. If anything happens to be there, we've got a yod. So, we are yod bait, so to speak, now, which complicates our lives almost as much as a fast Pluto, as we will see. Now, to understand a yod, we start off with the sextile at the base. Whatever the planets are, they're trying to work together. The nature of a sextile is mutually exciting. When I'm trying to clarify the difference between a sextile and a trine for people, for example, I'll say a trine is like human love between people in midlife who've been together for 20 years and they're comfortable together. They love each other. They have things kind of worked out. A sextile is more like teenagers in love. It's crazy. It's exciting. You can't sleep. A sextile is really very different from a trine. This idea of mutual excitement. And so the sextile creates a tremendous flux of energy in the psyche. It's got to be tuned. I'll get to that soon. There are ways to get it wrong, but a tremendous energy either way. And then that energy is driven through quincunxes, through those 150-degree aspects, into the planet that is the focal point of the yod, Chiron in this case. And such a planet is driven to extraordinary levels of productivity, of energy, of centrality in a person's life. There's nothing I've ever seen in astrology that correlates totally reliably with getting famous. For example, I've seen nothing that's really reliable about that. But the nearest thing to a predictor of fame that I've found is yod energy in the chart. And it's because whatever planet is focalized is driven so hard, it tends to create extreme accomplishments of one sort or another, which can potentially correlate with fame. So the key to all of this lies in the tuning of the yod. That's how I like to phrase it. Basically, each planet, the conventional FCEA 101 thinking about how to make a healthy response to any planet, make a healthy response to both of the planets in the sextile, and that creates the possibility that they can really enhance each other. Then you've tuned the base of the yod, and that's really the key to it. In your specific example, Neptune and Pluto, those two energies working together. We have the Plutonian need to do honest psychological work, to deal with our wounds, to deal with our issues, some of them karmic, some of them generated in this lifetime, but to be psychologically sound, psychologically honest, able to deal with the places where you're hurt inside and do it honestly. That's Pluto. Neptune, of course, mystical and spiritual, and to take good care of our spiritual life, whatever form that takes, our meditation, our creative work, our imaginative work, but to open up to the Neptune. And it's like pure psychology, pure Pluto, eventually is so depressing that you just want to jump off a bridge. Pure Neptune can get kind of flaky and ungrounded. They need each other. And the synergy of these two is one of the things that it's story of the 20th century, early 21st century for humanity. That's kind of a big subject. But in your own chart, getting your spiritual life and your psychological life both healthy, so they're balancing each other. You become very strong, you're less crazy, and that frees up a lot of energy. You feel inspiration from the Neptune, and that's tuned the base of the yod, and it drives up into that, in this case, into the Chiron, and energizes this part of you that has the capability of becoming the wounded healer. We could start off just by talking about the healer. This is not always the healer of physical bodies, but the one who is benefiting other people, attempting to intervene meaningful in the lives of other people. Chiron specifically be connected with a process where you have dealt effectively with your own woundedness. And in dealing effectively with your own woundedness, kind of brings us back to the Pluto, we have figured out a way to deal with the woundedness that might be generalizable. In other words, if I'm abused as a child and I have the damage of being abused as a child and I work through it and my life is no longer controlled by the fact that I had an abusive father or mother, if that's my story, the chironic fruit of that story is I can help other people who had been abused by their fathers or their mothers. So there's the chironic logic. And so we see an enormous potential to be a healer. The Chiron here in the 8th house, dealing with deep psychological woundedness. A lot of Pluto reference here. I notice Pluto is in the 1st house too, where it's so prominent. The tilt is kind of in that psychological direction, but you can't do the psychological work. You can't stand doing it without the spiritual life that gives you the perspective on the meaning of what you're wrestling with in Plutonian fashion. So the person gets that working and it energizes their ability to seize the destiny, so to speak, or rise to the calling of being the chironic healer in the world. It's obviously a huge subject, but I hope that gets you thinking along the right lines. So thanks.
For sure. I appreciate your sharing and your response. And I also watched your purchase your North Node journey, the North Node course some time ago. And yeah. I like how you the way you phrase about North Node is if someone in the deathbed can claim that they have done some of the North Node, it's a life well lived. So with the conjunction at the yard, like I think that the energy is countering, right? Because it's like possibly many people don't do it in the lifetime, but there is the charge and resistance like that is occurring, if that is the right visual.
Yeah, yes, you're right. This is a sort of a fun moment here for me, fun in a Scorpio South Node sort of way, to speak personally. And that is, if I were a psychotherapist, astrology is obviously close in some ways. But if I were a psychotherapist and I was guilt tripping my clients, trying to shame them into growing, I'd lose my license. That's a big taboo if you're a psychotherapist. No astrologer should aim to shame anybody, of course, but we have a little bit more license there. So let me take the risk. And it is that there's with this chart, you may happen to know somebody with a chart like this for obvious reasons, but with a chart like this, with Chiron at the focal point of the yod, this destiny or this calling to be a healer who really makes a difference in other people's lives, there's a tremendous responsibility connected with that. You have the potential to really impact other people and strengthen them in the face of their wounds, help them get past their wounds. You have that ability, and with that ability comes a responsibility. But how do you get there? Well, getting there involves getting to your North Node. It involves dealing with your own karmic kind of issues as symbolized in the South Node. And until you've made some progress there with that ultimate personal spiritual journey, your ability to get to the Chiron is going to be inhibited. And so it's like, work hard. Here comes the guilt trip. Work hard on your own evolution because other people's journeys are depending on you. Other people need you to get this right. They're counting on you. So don't make a mess out of it. See, there's some guilt in that, but it kind of reflects the actual reality of what the symbols are saying. You can make a difference in other people's lives, but you're not born with that ability. You were born with the ability to get there. And there's some pressure on you to get there because others are kind of counting on pivoting on your intervention in their lives. I would feel really good about anybody who was enrolled in the FCEA, for example, who happened to have that configuration, because here you are learning techniques of psychological and spiritual integration that empower us to intervene meaningfully in other people's lives. So the FCEA is a good illustration of what this thing would look like if it's gotten right.